Hello and welcome to Mr. Excel 101. In this video I'm going to be talking you through data analysis, counting data and using the count formulas. So in this instance I've got a data table here, I've got some data in it and I want to manipulate it. I want to know how many entries I've got, how many entries I've got in London and how many entries I've got in London that have a test score above 60. So if this is a fixed data table, the easiest way of doing it is manually filtering. So you can see here, if I highlight all of the row values within the column G, in the bottom of my screen I'll get a count of those values, a sum of those values and an average. So I can very quickly see I've got 20 entries in total. If I apply a filter, so if I'm just filtering for London, you can apply multiple filter selections if I wanted London and Oxford as well. So if I filter for London, then again in the bottom of the screen I've got 7 of those items. I've got the average of those items, and I can very quickly see I've got 3 scores above 60, and I could sort by this column to make that even easier. Whilst filtering is a fantastic way of analysing data for a fixed data set, it's not very robust if your data set is live, constantly changing, and you're constantly wanting to find analysis on that data set. So in that instance, you'll want to be trying to use formulas where possible. So I've got a couple of questions here on the right hand side of the screen. So in column L and row 2, I'm just going to type equals and equal to count. So when you type in a formula that Excel knows, it will give you quite a lot of options and you'll be able to go onto the help for any of these options to find out more information. So the count formula is a very good way of counting how many instances we have for real values. So I can just highlight the range and enter as shown, and you can see here I've got 20 entries. An alternative way of doing that would be to use the count A function. So this basically says if we don't have values, if we just have text, for instance, how many cells do I have which are not equal to blank? So again, in this instance, I could select the range of the table, and you can see here that because it's using the table as the range, then when a new row is added to that, it will just continue to add onto that. If you're not using a table, you could select the entire row, the entire column as shown. This will then show all of the data entries where there is an entry and the cell is not blank. So because this is pulled in the column header as well, then we now have 21. If we know that we have a column header, then we could just add -1 to the end of that and we know exactly how many entries we have. In terms of how many entries we have in London, so for this you'll want to use the Countif formula. So there's 2 variations of Countif and Countifs, based on if there is one variable or multiple. So first of all, if we do the Countif function, so type in Countif, open brackets, and you'll want to select your range where you're actually counting. So in this instance, I'm going to select the nearest city column. So first thing to do is select the range, add in a comma, and then put in your criteria. So your criteria could be, if you open the speech marks, I could just put in London and close brackets, and that will give me all of the entries in London. You may have a variable that changes, so in this instance, if I just type London in column J, then I can get rid of this reference to a fixed bit of text and actually use it as that variable. So in this instance, I can see how many instances are in London, but if I actually want to know how many instances are in Cardiff, then the formula is now picking up from this value from this cell. So you can see it's now picking up 2 instead. The final part is countifs. So what if we've got multiple criteria? In this instance, same as before, let's type countifs and open our brackets. So as before, we're going to highlight our nearest city. So we're going to select our range. We're going to put in our criteria as London. Spell it correctly. And then what we're going to do now, instead of closing the brackets, is actually put in another comma and add in a second criteria. So for our second criteria, we're going to select the test 1 score column, and we're going to put in our value. So in this instance, I'm going to open the quotation marks and do greater than or equal to, an ampersand, and 60 and close brackets. So in this instance there, I can see that I've got 3 instances where the score is above 60 or above and equal to 60, and the location is London. Okay, thank you. For more content, please like and subscribe.